So, I'm 29, and I build things for a living. I own a custom carpentry business that I started from scratch in my garage. Now, we have a great reputation and a long wait list, making high-end furniture and installations. It's hard work. My hands are usually a mess, but it's mine and I'm proud of it. For the last 4 years, I thought my fiancée was proud of it, too. But over the last 6 months, ever since she got a PR job working with the city's elite, things started to change. The way she mentioned my job went from he's a talented craftsman to a vague, he works with his hands. The little comment started, to, are you aware that when I put on my favorite flannel for a casual dinner? Or, maybe we should just say you're in custom design, she'd suggest, as if the word carpentry was dirty. The breaking point was the Starlight Charity Gala at the Oakwood Crest Country Club, the social event of the season. Her firm had a table, and she'd been talking about it for weeks. The clients who'd be there, the connections she'd make. I'd already rented a tux. I was genuinely looking forward to supporting her. A few days before the event, we were in the kitchen, and she dropped the bomb. About the gala, she said, not looking up from her phone. I've been thinking it's probably better if I go by myself. I paused, halfway through dicing an onion. By yourself? I thought this was a big deal for us. She finally looked at me with this pained expression, like she was about to explain a complex theorem to a toddler. It is a big deal. For my career. These people, they're different. They're investors, surgeons, old money. It's all about perception. And what's the perception problem? I asked, though a cold feeling was already creeping into my stomach. It's just your job, she said, waving a hand dismissively. It's a sweet little business. It is. But when someone with a last name that's on a hospital wing asks you what you do, and you say you're a carpenter, it's just awkward for me. I can't be worrying about that all night. She took a breath and delivered the final blow. Honestly, I can't introduce you to my wealthy friends. You're too embarrassing. Embarrassing. The word just hung there in the air, sucking all the oxygen out of the room. This was the woman I was going to marry. The woman who had, just a year ago, cried with joy when I showed her the blueprints for the workshop I was building. Now, that same workshop was a source of shame. In that one moment, every little jab, every dismissive comment from the past few months, all of it clicked into place. It wasn't about me. It was about her new, shiny image, and I was the scuff mark she wanted to polish away. Something inside me just shut off. All the anger, all the hurt, it just cooled into a solid, heavy calm. I looked at her and said, with no emotion at all, understood. She was visibly taken aback. She had prepared for a fight, for me to argue or get upset. My simple agreement threw her off. Oh, okay, good, she stammered. I'm glad you're being mature about this. It's just what's best for us. I get it, I said, turning back to the onions. You do what you have to do. She seemed relieved, and a few minutes later was happily texting, the crisis of her embarrassing fiancé averted. She had absolutely no idea what she'd just done. Later that night, after she was asleep, I went into my home office and made a call I rarely make. Dad, I said when he answered, change of plans. I need to be at the Oakwood Crest Gala on Saturday, and I think it's time we moved up the timeline. Here's the part she never knew. My dad is a very wealthy, very private man. His company owns a massive portfolio of luxury hotels, resorts, and high-end properties, including, you guessed it, the Oakwood Crest Country Club. I grew up with money, but I hated the entitlement I saw in that world. When I turned 18, I told my dad I wanted no part of it until I could build something of my own. He not only agreed, he made it a condition. He said I couldn't inherit a dime or a title until I had proven I could create value with my own two hands. The deal was that on my 30th birthday, which was just a few months away, I'd start transitioning into the family business, not as some spoiled heir, but as a partner who actually understood what work meant. When I told him what my fiancée had said, he was quiet for a moment, and then I heard him let out a low chuckle. So, the woman who wants to get into the club has no idea she's sleeping next to the keys, he said. The irony is almost painful. What's the play, son? She thinks I'm not good enough to meet her friends. I told him. So I'm going to meet them without her. I want to be introduced not as a guest, but as your son and successor. Done, he said immediately. The board has been asking for a formal introduction anyway. We'll call this a pre-introduction. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. I was at my father's tailor getting fitted for a suit that probably cost more than my first truck. I was in boardrooms getting briefed on quarterly earnings and expansion plans. It felt like putting on a costume, but the strange thing was it fit. Meanwhile, my fiancée was in her own little world, floating on a cloud of excitement for her big night. The evening of the gala, she gave me a quick kiss on the cheek on her way out. "Don't do anything too embarrassing while I'm gone," she joked, patting my chest. "I'll try my best," I said, holding the door open for her. 2 hours later, I arrived at the club. The general manager greeted me at the door like royalty. "Good to have you, sir. Your father is with the board members by the terrace." I walked into the main ballroom and saw her almost instantly. She was in her element, glass of champagne in hand, laughing with a circle of people who looked like they were minted, not born. She looked beautiful, and for a split second, I felt a pang of something. But then I remembered why I was there. My father saw me and guided me over to a group of serious-looking men in tuxedos. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my son." One by one, I shook their hands, and we didn't talk about golf or yachts. I told them about my carpentry business, about sourcing rare woods, managing employees, and the profit margins on bespoke furniture. They were genuinely interested. I was talking business, my business, and they respected it. From across the room, I felt her eyes on me. I turned slowly and met her gaze. Her jaw was slack. Her champagne flute was frozen halfway to her lips. She was looking at me, then at the powerful men I was talking with, and the equation wasn't adding up in her head. The moment that really sealed it was when a woman named Mrs. Albright, a renowned interior designer my fiancé had been name-dropping for weeks, walked right past my fiancé, belining for me. "You must be him," she said, shaking my hand warmly. "My husband's on the board. He told me the owner's son was a master craftsman. The story of you building your own company is just fantastic. I have a new hotel project I'd love to discuss with you." I saw my fiancé's face crumble. She finally broke away from her group and marched over, her face a mass of confusion and fury. "What is going on?" She hissed. "How do you know these people?" Before I could answer, my father stepped in, smooth as ever. He gave her a polite but icy nod. "Good evening." Then he put a hand on my shoulder. I was just telling the board how proud I am of my son. He insisted on making his own way before taking over the family business. A man of character. She looked back and forth between us, her mind visibly short-circuiting. "Your son? Family business? What business?" My dad smiled. "This one," he said, gesturing around the opulent ballroom. "Among others." The realization hit her like a freight train. The blood drained from her face. She wasn't looking at me, her embarrassing carpenter fiancé, anymore. She was looking at a walking, talking vault of everything she had ever wanted. The man she had just deemed unworthy was the key to this whole kingdom. She grabbed my arm. "We need to talk. In private. Now." I gently removed her hand. "No, we don't. You said everything that needed to be said the other night. I wouldn't want to embarrass you any further." I turned my back on her and walked away, leaving her standing there in the middle of the room as all her friends stared, whispering, finally seeing her for the shallow, transactional person she was. The next day, the real work began. I hired a moving company to pack up every single thing she owned in our apartment. They boxed up her designer clothes, her skincare products, everything. I had it all sent to a storage unit, for which I paid the first month's rent. By noon, the locks on the apartment were changed and her key card was deactivated. The apartment building itself is one of my family's properties, so it only took one phone call. Then I took the engagement ring, the one I designed with my grandmother's diamond, and sent it via courier to her office, timed to arrive in the middle of the afternoon. The note was short. "As you said, perception is everything. My perception is that this is over." Her phone blew up my phone. Dozens of missed calls. Voicemails that started angry, then turned into panicked sobbing. Text that read like a novel of desperation. What did you do? My key isn't working. Where's all my stuff? Call me. Then, an hour later, they delivered the ring to my desk in front of everyone. How could you do this to me? Her parents called. Her dad yelling about how I'd humiliated his daughter. I let him finish, then calmly said, Sir, your daughter called me an embarrassment and unceremoniously uninvited me from an event because she was ashamed of my job. The only thing I did was take her at her word and remove the embarrassment from her life. The humiliation she's feeling now is a consequence of her own actions. He didn't have a response to that. The final nail in the coffin was her job. Turns out, the owner of her PR firm is a golfing buddy of my dad's. The story of how his employee had publicly disrespected the son of his number one client got back to him pretty quickly. In the PR world, that's an unforgivable mistake. She was fired for gross misconduct and for damaging the firm's relationship with a key client. About a week later, she showed up at my workshop. She looked like a ghost. No makeup, hair a mess, wearing sweatpants. She just stood in the doorway, watching me work. I made a mistake, she whispered. A terrible one. I was insecure and stupid. Please, I love you. I didn't stop my work, running a plane over a piece of cherry wood. No, you don't, I said, my voice even over the scrape of the blade. You love what you think I am now. You love the idea of a simple, adoring craftsman until he became inconvenient. Then you loved the idea of a wealthy heir once that was revealed. You have never, not once, just loved me. That's not fair, she cried. I do love you. We can fix this. I finally stopped and looked her right in the eye. The woman I wanted to marry would have been proud to walk into that gala with me, sawdust on my boots or not. She would have been my partner, not my publicist. That woman doesn't exist. Maybe she never did. I picked up my plane again. The key to the storage unit is on its way to your parents' house. You should get your things. Goodbye. She just stood there and cried for a while, but eventually she left. The sound of my work filled the space where she'd been, and it was the best sound in the world.